Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to this hybrid council meeting. Please note that I am waiving the requirement within the council procedure rules which requires members to stand when addressing the meeting. Please remain seated. The meeting is being broadcast and recorded. If there are any technical issues, please bear with us. Before I officially open the meeting, I would like to welcome our new Chief Executive, Susan Halliwell, who's joining us for our first council meeting, although she's been with us for a couple of months now. But I think, can we all give a big Bracknell Council welcome to Sue? Thank you. I would now like to invite my chaplain to say a prayer. Welcome, Reverend Dunk.
God bless our late Queen, and also God save the King. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Dunk. I declare the meeting open. Now to the first item on the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence, Chief Executive?
Yes, I've received apologies from councillors Angel, Brunel Walker, Dudley, Kirk and Leake.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Councillors joining remotely, please turn on your microphone only and state that you're present when the Chief Executive calls your name. And anyone who does not respond will be recorded as giving their apologies.
Thank you. So I have Councillor Ms Hayes,
Present.
Councillor Mrs Ingham,
Present.
Councillor Mrs Mackenzie Boyle
Present.
and Councillor Ms Merry.
Present.
Thank you,
I'm
Chief Executive.
present.
Sorry, could you confirm your name? I didn't see who that was.
I'm Pauline Mackenzie, councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Agenda item 2 is to recommend for approval as a correct record the minutes of the council meetings held on 13th July and 28th September 2022. Before I ask Councillor Bettison to second the motion, please indicate if you have an issue with the accuracy. Madam Deputy Mayor, has anyone joining remotely indicated that there is an issue?
Nobody has indicated.
Thank you. Councillor Bettison, are you happy to second the minutes as a correct record?
I am indeed, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bettison. As nobody has indicated that they have an issue, therefore those are agreed. The full text for declarations of interest is set out on the agenda at item 3. If any councillor has a disclosable pecuniary interest or an affected interest to declare, please indicate by raising your hand and I will come to you in turn. Deputy Mayor, has anyone joining remotely indicated that they have an interest?
Nobody has so indicated.
Okay. I think we're just confirming something, so I'll just pause for a minute. Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Hayden has declared an interest. We will, when we come to that item, we will inform the audience accordingly. Okay. We now come to agenda item 4. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 9 of public participation, a petition has been submitted by Ms. O'Neill on behalf of Bracknell Climate Action Group. The full text of the petition is set out on the screen. Not there? Okay. Ms. O'Neill, welcome to the meeting. Would you like to come forward to address the meeting? Welcome. Can I just state you have 3 minutes?
Yeah.
And once we are at 2 minutes 45, I will give you an indication to say that you have 15 seconds left. Is that okay? All right. Over to you.
First of all, I would like to thank the Council for allowing us to come here today and present our petition. which pleads for urgent and decisive action to tackle the climate catastrophe, which is fast approaching. The wording of our petition is as follows. Bracknell needs to join the surrounding unitary authorities in declaring a climate emergency. Bracknell needs to recognise the urgency of climate change and act decisively. The Council must develop a measurable, ambitious, target-driven strategy for the whole community that reflects the government's stated climate targets. In declaring a climate emergency, Bracknell would be joining the vast number of other unitary authorities, which include Wokingham, Reading and Windsor. The Council would also be responding to the fears of local residents who flock to our town centre campaign to sign our petition. In just 12 hours of campaigning over 6 different weekends, we gathered 422 signatures, in addition to the 304 people who signed our online petition, a total of 726 people. Many spoke to us about their fears for their own futures and the futures of their children. These people were borough residents or visitors using Bracknell services, and they are desperately keen to see decisive action being taken. The Council has taken measures to combat climate change, but the time has come to inject a sense of urgency, or its goal of reaching net zero by 2050 is quite simply not going to be met. The recent record temperatures are evidence of the accelerating effects of climate change and how it will impact every aspect of our community. The enthusiasm for action can be seen by the tremendous response of Bracknell residents to the Council's excellent food waste scheme, which has proved to be such a success. The Council has declared its aim to reach net zero by 2050, and to reach this goal, a more measurable, ambitious, target-driven strategy for the whole community must be implemented. This was indeed noted in the latest update on the strategy's progress. Without targets and aims with measurable impacts, the Council can have no idea if it will reach its 2050 target. Bracknell Forest Council itself may only be responsible for a small percentage of the CO2 emissions, but it has a unique leadership role to play in bringing together people and influencing all sections of the community, including businesses, schools, developers, community groups and every resident. It is a role that Bracknell must urgently utilise to mobilise action. We would also urge the Council to work together with others. There is much work that has been done elsewhere and which could be implemented collaboratively with neighbouring councils. We would ask Bracknell to work cooperatively with others to maximise knowledge and resources and to fast-track the progress to net zero in 2050. Thank you. This is beyond party politics. This is a fight for survival. A declaration of a climate emergency is not an empty gesture. It is a rallying call for everyone to step up and create a safer future for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Before I invite questions, I think I should have made a housekeeping point earlier. So we have quite a few guests today. When your items come up, after that, you're more than welcome to stay. But if you wanted to move after that, leave after that, that is entirely your choice. So please don't feel that, you have to stay for the whole duration, but you're more than welcome to stay if you want. Thank you again, Ms. O'Neill. Members have an opportunity to ask factual questions. Does anyone have a question? Okay, I don't see any questions. Councillor Mrs. Hayes, MB, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will indulge you, and I hope you won't mind. This will be a few minutes more than expected. Mr. Mayor, as the Executive Member of the Environment and the lead member of Addressing Climate Change, I would like to thank Ms. O'Neill and Bracknell Climate Action Group for this petition. This petition gives me a further opportunity to speak to Council about this important issue. There has been a priority of this Council since 2007. It is a shame that Ms. O'Neill and her group missed my last speech on this topic in July. I understand the recording of the meeting is lost, so I'm pleased to have a further opportunity to repeat my remarks and, with the indulgence of the Mayor, to highlight our record on this matter. Given that this is the same speech in line with our Council's policies, it is good to reuse and recycle. Having looked at the points requested in the petition, clearly the requester hasn't Googled the phrase Bracknell Forest and climate change. Had they done so, the answers to her petition would have clearly presented themselves to them for review. Waste, Mr. Mayor, is something that we must all guard against. Mr. Mayor, the strategy is easily found on the website along with annual report on progress. This citing alongside of the videos of the meetings of the Climate Change Advisory Panel, meetings of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, and a large number of policy documents covering recycling, biodiversity, insulation, planning policy, walking and cycling. I could go on and on and on. Also, for those minded to read the odd council agenda, minutes detailing councillors' discussions on this matter can easily be found there too. If help is needed to access the internet, I am sure that our library staff would be more than willing to show how to get to such information as part of our Warm Hub initiative. In terms of this petition, I'm hoping that this lack of knowledge is an access issue rather than, as Al Gore would say, an inconvenient truth. The truth being that this council has a long and successful programme of addressing man-made climate change head-on. In fact, Mr. O'Neill spoke to the council's Overview and Scrutiny Commission on the 2nd of December 2020 as part of the Commission's scrutinisation of the draft strategy, whose highlights I will present again to the council today, plus the many things we have done since. If Ms. O'Neill has forgotten that session, the video of the meeting is on YouTube. I'm sure that library staff again can help with that too. Although this is my second speech this year on the CIS subject, it is also the second time a similar presentation has been made to the Council that we are not doing enough. In January 2020, the Council received a similar Rule 9 petition from Extinction Rebellion Bracknell. The leader in this meeting reminded the petitioners that the Council had, in July 2019, passed a cross-party motion that was proposed by myself and seconded by the Leader of the Opposition. This motion says, this Council strongly believes in the need to continue its work to address the impact of man-made climate change on our local communities. To this end, this Council asked the Executive to develop detailed action plans with measurable, ambitious annual targets and an annual report to address this pressing matter to ensure that the Council meets the government target of eradication is net contribution to climate change by 2050. Members may think that some of this sounds similar, as the petition asks us to do in 2022. What we agree to and have been doing since 2019. I was really pleased to report the following. The motion passed in this chamber in 2019, a motion that was unanimously supported by all members of this council, that serious and hard work has been undertaken by officers, members, and most importantly, the residents of Bracknell Forest. We have not only delivered a climate change mitigation strategy that this council can be proud of, but one that has in its bones, in its DNA, the voices and aspirations of all the residents of this borough. We are now rapidly approaching the 3rd anniversary of this council's agreeing our climate change strategy. I would remind everyone that we workshopped our strategy just a few days before the first lockdown. We consulted via video, despite the second COVID peak, and launched while we were still dealing with the year 1 COVID. All of this to say that this is and has been at the heart of everything we do. Members will note in the strategy that our history since the Nottingham Declaration of 2007, to which Bracknell Forest was a signatory, we have worked consistently to be a low-carbon, sustainable community. This is not a new priority for this council. It is in the DNA, our DNA. we have over time delivered apace a wide range of projects that have seen the borough's carbon emissions, not just the council's emissions, but the borough's emissions reduced considerably. In fact, on the second anniversary of our motion, we issued a press release detailing these achievements. I have instructed officers to send Miss O'Neill's group this press release, so they will need to let me know if they didn't get the email. However, it said that compared to other authorities in southeast of England, only Reading and Kent have reduced their emissions by a higher percentage than Bracknell Forest over the last 14 years. Furthermore, only Reading, Brighton and Hove and East Sussex saw lower levels in 2019 with us. Mr Mayor, the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Department of the Central Government reported that the borough's area's CO2 emissions since 2005 have reduced by 42%. Just in the last year of measurement, we saw borough area emissions down by 18.2 kilotons of CO2. Bracknell Forest area's emissions per capita were 3.5 tonnes, which is lower than the 4.4 tonnes South East England average and the 5.2 tonnes national average. So I do not believe that Bracknell Forest is falling behind our neighbours. We are more leading the pack. I would again thank our overview and scrutiny panel chairmen and commissioners who have led the workshops which involve community representatives and members in scrutinising our draft strategy in public, all whilst in the middle of the COVID emergency. So, as I said in July, when I introduced the annual report, since January 2021, we have been busy implementing our strategy. This is a summation of the work that you as members have led, that you as members have overseen, that you as members have championed, and I am grateful for your support. I would especially like to thank my colleagues on the executive who have shown true leadership in their portfolios to take this agenda forward as the whole council's priority. I won't go through every achievement as there are so many, but I will take this further opportunity to share with the Council a few highlights from the report covering the period January 2021 to March 2022, and update on some issues that have moved forward more. We are at the beginning of a journey to decarbonise transport solutions. Governments have now confirmed that all new cars and vans wholly powered by petrol and diesel will not be sold in the UK from 2030. Therefore, I commend Councillor Turrell's work around electric vehicle charging points. On top of the current charging points around the borough, the Council has, since my last report, delivered 32 community charging points around this borough. These points will be in addition to the requirement of new builders under building control, regulations P11 requirement, that all new homes to have EV charging point, that as the UK continues to be at the forefront of the electric vehicle transition, we in Bracknell Forest will keep pace with this growing demand. The policy document is on our website. I'm also grateful to his team for supporting in getting pre-planning application approved to move forward with the first EV charging, in quotes, petrol station, which I am hoping will be the first in Berkshire. Our visit to the Oxford charging hub was very interesting, and I will remind officers that we do need a little shop, public toilets on the site. It is not just cars that need fuelling up on these locations. And I will have a formal update on this project in the new year, early spring for you. Winning the resources to decarbonise our buildings has been led by Councillor Hayden and his property team. They secured £929,000 of CELEX funding for 39 schools and other council buildings. They've also swapped our energy purchasing over to 100% green energy. This work has complemented my own teamwork around the decarbonisation of residents' homes. We have secured so far 1.9 million green home grant, of which 900,000 has already been spent on residents' homes. with good progress on spending the remaining funds on sustaining warmth projects for the least energy efficient homes. This work was recognised at the South East Energy Efficiency Awards. Members will note that at the time of the executive on the 29th of September, we approved 1 million of new money to invest in 7 council buildings. The result of this investment will be a reduction in electricity and gas consumption by 67.7% in the next year's consumption. I would like to thank and commend Councillor Harrison on not only bringing forward a scheme to address vehicle idling around schools and other sensitive areas, but also for his work around the natural environment. Our parks, our open spaces, are key for building community and for social well-being. So it is pleasing to report that the Parks and Countryside Service has planted 2,795 trees over 20 sites as part of highways improvements and improvements to the public green space. In addition, both the total areas of the habitats and principal importance and local wildlife sites have increased by 50.97 and by 17.7 hectares respectively. I would like to thank Councillor Barnard, Department for organising the borough's first schools climate change conference. Part of our strategy seeks to engage young people in our objective of addressing man-made climate change and climate change mitigation. This very successful conference has been supported with each school getting a £500 award to take forward the ideas they are generating at the conference. I hope to report on many initiatives coming from this work. I also hope that this schools conference becomes an annual climate change schools conference. Finally, members, and I'm sure you're hoping that it is final, we'll be aware of our flagship food waste recycling programme is now over a year old. This work was launched under our Greening Our Waste strategy. The executive has received a first-year highlight report, and as the executive member for this area, I'm very proud of our residents for how they have embraced this change. The recycling rate from 2021-22 is now 56% and growing. This is an increase of 13% compared to the previous year. There was a 33% reduction in curbside residual waste following the introduction of the free weekly residual waste collections and the rollout of the food waste caddies from March 2021. Our 56% recycling rate could see Bracknell Forest move, in, as it is, from 100 or more places up to the Recycling League table for English local authorities from 150th out of 338 to a top 10. Members will know that I always like to be at the top of the charts, and I will get us there. The landfills rate for 2022 is expected by 7%. This has reduced by more than half compared to 2021. Approximately 90% of the houses across the borough are participating in food waste recycling. This is one of the main reasons the amount of food collected has been so high. Collections from flats has now started, and our new food waste vehicle has just hit the road, joining Old Dame Foodie Dench. I thank Councillor Brunel Walker's communication team, who were key to our success around food waste and for running a national commended food waste and climate change campaign. So in closing, Mr. Mayor, I thank the petitioner for giving me another opportunity to run through our history and history of achievement of this topic. Our position hasn't changed on declaring an emergency. That said, this issue has been urgent for the borough for well over a decade and a half. Also, we have already agreed to have measurable, ambitious, target-driven climate strategy. It says it in our 2019 motion. Addressing man-made climate change has been a priority of this council for a number of years. In making this a priority, we have taken many tough decisions that have acted to, gotta get my papers in order, protect and prioritise the environment over what would have been cheaper and less challenging for our communities. All this to say, Lots done, but a lot more to be done, and we will do it. Therefore, Mr. Mayor, on closing, I would just say, therefore, the leader has asked me to give notice of a motion, addressing what we call the situation at the next meeting of the ordinary full council. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Hayes. Officer team, can we please record the notice of the motion? Councillor Virgo, you would like to say something?
I would. Thank you very much. I won't. Thank you very much. Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to say just a couple of points, really, as chairman of the Climate Change Panel, because this council, I think it was a year and a half ago, set this up, and it was an area in which we can scrutinise and suggest changes to plans that affect climate change. I'd like to thank the Action Group, actually, very much, because I know some of them, and their intentions are extremely good, and we need that sometimes in councils to give us a bit of a kick. And there's nothing wrong with that, and I would like to thank all of them for their work, because I know in the background they do a lot of work, so thank you very much for that. Mr. Mayor, there are loads of things we can talk about, and Councillor Hayes has spent some time doing that. But of course, it's not just this council, it's everybody. Everybody has to look at their own lives and try and reduce carbon. And it means that we've also got to look at transport and so on. So I hope we take away, and I know that the panel wants to do more and more work by bringing other people in, but I think everybody can help on this level. So I don't think it's just the council. And I know from my experience, this council is doing as much as it can for the money it has. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Virgo. Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. Thank you for everyone else who took the time to attend the meeting today. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we'll understand if you need to leave. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, we'll give a couple of minutes. Please. Okay. We now come to agenda item 5, which are mayor's announcements. So on to my announcements. I would like to start the announcements with something very new that we've tried to bring this year. Bracknell is called the Borough of Opportunity, and we are very lucky that in Bracknell Forest we have some amazing individuals who contribute in a selfless way towards the well-being and happiness of our residents. And to recognize those individuals, we have constituted something called the Opportunity Champion Awards. So that is where for each month, we will recognize a resident of Bracknell Forest who goes above and beyond to provide opportunities to their fellow residents and, general well-being in the society and do more than most in terms of contribution to the borough. So it is my great pleasure to present the first award, which is for the month of June 2022 to Monica Taplin. So just a few words, so how Monica does it. I mean, you might have seen her on social media. she provides so much well-being in the borough. So she dons various very nice outfits. So, you know, I first met you when you were wearing a cow outfit, I think. But sort of, you know, she has all the different kinds. I don't know where you store them, but she runs, and I believe you're running the London Marathon next.
Yes, but it is a virtual London Marathon.
Virtual one, yes.
I didn't want to wait another year to get in,
Sure.
as children need help, and is that for mental health for young children? It's our local charity, Youthline,
Yes.
which they're doing fantastic job, and actually I'm honored to get that reward, but this reward will go to the Youthline because they're absolutely great and amazing to have them here. So thank you ever so much. But I will be running more in my silly costume. I hope I will make you smile. So if you do see me, it's my actually great pleasure if I see people smiling and just wave. Wow, then I know I will be able to run this 26.2 miles.
You will. You
So
will.
thank you ever so much.
You
Thank
will.
you.
We are very proud to have you as a resident.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now for the month of July 2022, we actually have, Phil, is that working? Can I use that? So for the month of July, actually, we have two joint opportunity champions. So we have Natalia Will and Ashley Toomey. Natalia and Ashley have again gone above and beyond to support the Ukrainian effort, not only in Ukraine, but here in the country as well, in the UK as well. You might be aware that when the conflict started, you know, there was a big initiative from them where they were getting all the charity stuff that could be sent to Ukraine from their own house, and then sort of, you know, it went from there. And they've been instrumental recently in many initiatives, but one of the main ones is the Z Razon, is that, in Princess Square, in the town center, which is a very safe space for Ukrainian refugees to come and for them to provide them support as required. So many congratulations, very well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so now for the month of August 22, we have Alison Baker. So Alison is hugely instrumental in supporting the residents of the Parks, you know, which is a relatively new township, very near us. So she is heavily involved in the well-being of the residents of the Parks through various activities that she undertakes. And I believe, you know, whether it is involving small children, whether it is involving housewives, whether it is charity days, summer days, you know, you will always see Alison going above and beyond. So very proud to have you as the resident. Thank you. Can we have the slides up, please? Yes. Moving on with the mayor's announcements, it has been a relatively busy year. I think I can say so far. It's, I think, what I call a bittersweet year, because of course, it started with the Jubilee, which was fantastic, and we had some amazing atmosphere in the borough. But then, of course, we had the unfortunate passing of the Queen, but you know, the slightly sweeter side in terms of our new king taking charge. So what you see on the screen are a few highlights from the engagements, from the mayor's engagements so far. So of course, you know, it's where we were paying tribute to our lovely Queen. Can we move to the next slide, please? Multiple engagements, so Interfaith Forum, where I was honored to have the chief executive with me as well, where we engaged in very good discussions in terms of the views across different faiths in the borough. We had the Pride, which we supported in different parts of not only Bracknell but outside as well, to make sure that all sections of the society are strongly represented. The picture there, which you see with our Member of Parliament, James Sunderland, myself and Chief Executive, is at the Bracknell Town Football Club, where history was made after, almost 30 years, I believe, where we were in the FA Cup, which was absolutely amazing atmosphere with world-class presenters coming to Bracknell and, really raising the profile of Bracknell Forest. If we move forward, please. And then one of the very key ones is on the right, where you see a special Jubilee poppy led by Councillor Dorothy Hayes, who invested a lot of her own thought capital and maybe capital as well to get that get that up and running. And I believe that really was appreciated a lot by the residents of the borough from the feedback that we have received. And yes, just wider engagement. You can see what the mayor is involved in, by visiting the mayor's page and also the social media channels on which we are present across almost all the channels: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, in terms of our engagement. But the key objective is to continue to spread the message of opportunity in the Bracknell Forest borough. Okay, so that is what the mayor has been involved in largely so far. Moving forward, I believe some of our colleagues, councillors, have some good news stories. Can I start with you, Councillor Barnard?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. So the news I want to share this evening relates to help with the cost of living in Bracknell Forest, and this is using the Household Support Fund, which of course is additional to the money from central government schemes. The news in the recent autumn budget around the extension of the Household Support Fund for the full 2023 to 24 year has been hugely welcomed, I'm sure. We have already distributed over £1 million of this Department for Work and Pensions funding to Bracknell Forest residents since October 2021, and we have been able to reach a huge number of different people over this period, including low-income residents with disabilities and pension-age households. Over the last 12 months, households with children eligible for free school meals have received £180 of supermarket vouchers for each eligible child. We also have an application route specifically to reach those families who may not automatically receive these school-based vouchers. I think that's really important in terms of our reach into our community. So we have specifically now also agreed to extend the current offer for Household Support Fund to increase the value of supermarket vouchers to £300 for low-income working-age households who are not in receipt of qualifying benefits for the national £650 cost of living payment, and also to provide £150 in supermarket vouchers to low-income pension-age households who also do not quite qualify for that cost of living payment, and to complement the £150 to £300 additional pension-age cost of living payment provided through the National Winter Fuel Scheme. These will be posted directly to those identified as eligible and distributed over the next 2 weeks and before Christmas. Over the coming weeks and through January, we will be looking at options for next year's funding to ensure that we use the grant to support our most vulnerable residents. These plans will be developed alongside the wider budget proposals and recommended in the new year. In the meantime, we will continue to make sure that the full grant provided is used to reach and support our residents. And I would like to thank all our officers involved in putting this well-researched initiative together. They do this in addition to their other roles on the council, and therefore we're able to maximise the money we can allocate to supporting our residents at this difficult and challenging time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Barnard. Can I come to you, Councillor Birch?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Almost on a similar vein, but looking to support our residents. I'm keen that all members and residents are made aware of some of the things that we are doing to help residents during this winter, and some of our Opportunity Award recipients, I'm sure, are going to be involved in some of the things that we're planning to do. So with your forbearance, we obviously recognise the pressures that householders are going to be under over the winter period, and in particular with things like heating. It's vital that residents are warm and active over the winter to best protect their health and well-being. And that's why this administration has put in place a number of initiatives specifically to focus on supporting our most vulnerable residents. And the first one I'm going to talk about is called the Community Winter Hubs. 7 community winter hub locations have been identified across the borough to provide warm and safe spaces to residents during the winter. We already have a number of brilliant spaces locally that residents can use and be part of the community. 6 of our bigger libraries and, of course, here at Times Square, the Community Hub, have been identified for this. They are open several times a week and for most of the day. The Community Winter Hubs aim to support residents with the rising energy costs, as well as reducing social isolation during the winter. In particular, residents will find books, games, computer access at each location, as well as friendly staff and volunteers on site. We're pleased that every parish as well has at least one space available as a winter hub. These spaces will also be a useful place for us accessing other support such as local information, advice and guidance through the on-site staff that are available on site, so that they can get local information leaflets as well. So if people aren't that active on the internet as some of our residents are, they will be able to go and get help either with accessing that or getting leaflets, so they're not left out. The other side of things is connecting communities. As well as community winter hubs, we know there is also extensive work happening in the community, and so we are working to help connect these spaces with residents. We have identified other warm spaces around the borough being run by local communities and voluntary and faith groups, including coffee mornings and hot food provision, etc. Most of the Connecting Communities locations are open on 1 or 2 days and for a few hours. So please do check what the timings are, and I'm asking members, if asked, to acquaint yourselves with those timings and how to access on the website what's going on, etc., so that you can be there immediately for your residents. We've also got what's called the 5 Ways to Winter Wellness, because it's not about just hunkering down and hoping the cold goes away. We have also launched the 5 Ways to Winter Wellness campaign, providing a variety of free, there's the word, activities across the season to support residents' health and well-being. Activities include Tai Chi, nutrition workshops, and that's going to be important with the cost of living, advice on how to eat healthily for less, and energy efficiency talks, very important going forward, wellness walks, craft sessions, and much, much more. And all sessions, as I say, are free to attend and are led by qualified instructors. The activities will be in the community hub locations, as well as other locations across the borough. The activities promote wellness linking to the 5 important elements of winter wellness. That's self-care, so advice about how to look after yourself, etc., how to get protected, vaccinations, etc., how to get active, take part in lots of events, and also, most importantly, not forgetting the need for mental health and welfare and well-being. Okay, a full timetable of all the winter wellness programme and locations and opening hours for the community hub are on the community hub website, which is part of our own environment. So, as I say, do please become familiar with that. You'll all remember, members, our welcome mat, if you remember that, where the community map, to further promote the localised sport, the council will be has relaunched the new version of our community asset map that promotes local community groups and activities. And if any of your activity groups want to be part of that, you can get your name on it with your contact details and everything, and then everybody can know where you are and what you're doing. So you're very welcome to be part of that. The map promotes a variety of activities, groups, societies across Bracknell Forest to help people integrate into their community. Thank you very much. And this is another tool to help us connect all our people with local facilities and low cost and free activities. Now, I'm just going to touch on something, because what I've mentioned so far are things this council are providing in addition to all the government staff. But I'm just going to go through quickly the government staff, because these local initiatives sit alongside a number of wider government initiatives to support the welfare. Those in the council tax bands A and D have received a £150 rebate in the summer. Additional discretionary funding has been made to low-income households. Gareth was mentioning that earlier, to meet the council tax band categories. Those with qualifying income benefits have already received £326 in July and September, and a further £324 this month, directly through their benefits. There has also been specific costs of living payments to those with disabilities and those on pensions. And finally, all the residents will have received the £400 energy rebate in segments over the coming months, directly through your energy bills. And hopefully this will help many families with immediate pressures so they can stay warm and well this winter. And the reason why I'm mentioning those particular points is I wanted to emphasise that those grants, government grants, have been made into people's benefits payments or banks through their energy suppliers. The reason I'm saying that is I want all members to be aware of the potential for scams when people mention government grants, and people then phone up saying, give me your bank details and I'll send you the money. None of these monies require you to give any of your bank details to anyone, so please do promote that. And if anybody feels they've had a problem with a scam or that, please, if you as a councillor are contacted about that, you'll see on the website as well a lot of guidance about how to ensure our residents stay safe when money is being handed to them. So, and may I also thank all the members of staff who've worked really hard to pull together and to manage this into what I'm hoping will be a joined up way of providing a warm and safe winter for our residents. And can I also, and I know you're going to join me with this, thank all those myriad of volunteers who have come forward and will come forward, because we know what happened in the pandemic, to help all our residents that have issues this weekend. Mr. Mayor, you've been very tolerant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. And finally, can I come to you, Councillor Hayden?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Following on from Councillor Barnard and Councillor Birch, I just thought I'd like to put on record the amount of support we've been able to help with His Majesty's Government in supporting both our own residents and our local businesses. It's all a matter of record how concerned everybody is about inflation, living costs, the effects of the pandemic, and the financial pressures faced by everyone, especially our most vulnerable residents. We, in association with His Majesty's Government, have supported both residents and local businesses here in Bracknell Forest. So far this year, we've paid out just under £5.5 million through the government's energy rebate scheme. It's just so people can view the amount of support people are getting. And previously, over £25 million has been paid out to local businesses through the various business grants which government asked us to administer during the peak COVID periods. The other thing, it's a heartfelt thank you to all our VFC staff, especially in finance and revenue services, who, apart from the speed in disbursing the grants, also made sure that monies were properly checked and auditable, which is absolutely key, that things were done safely and securely, because it is public money. So thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. We now come to the regular report of the Executive at agenda item 6. I call on the Leader of the Council, Councillor Paul Bettison, to present the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to give this executive report. In terms of recent meetings, we have had 4 formal meetings since the annual council, as can be seen here. And within those meetings, if I have the next slide, thank you. Transformation and Finance and the Revenue Expenditure Outturn for 21-22, the Executive noted that revenue expenditure for 21-22 was just over £74 million, and that represented a just over £1 million underspend compared to the approved budget, and that has been returned to general reserves, giving us the ability to go into our next year, fiscal year, with a reserves balance at that stands at just over £11 million, which is 5% of the council's net budget, and that is a prudent action, prudent council in action. So we should note the council's treasury management performance, which is, as usual, nothing short of excellent. And in accordance with the Prudential Code of Capital Finance, it was recommended to the council, and that appears on your agenda later this evening. Over the page, please. There's been an adoption of the settled site development plan for Market Street as proposed by the Cambium Partnership, and that sets out the final build form and quantum for development. Included in the development is an additional 52 affordable rented homes, which increases the proportion of affordable homes to 56%. And £500,000
from section 106 goes to a nominated registered provider for the additional affordable rented homes. And that recommendation will appear on the agenda tonight also. Over the page, we turn to Bracknell Library with Transformation and Finance, and it's been agreed in principle to relocate the library to Princess Square, creating a new library and cultural facility right in the middle of our town. And linked to the final stages of the deck, and this will facilitate the future regeneration of the current library site. It's been agreed that the council will enter into a heads of terms for the lease, completion being subject to the deck scheme being unconditionally committed to by Bracknell Regeneration Limited Partnership. Moving on to Transformation and Finance, the depot surplus land. It's been agreed that the exclusivity period relating to the surplus land at the central depot site, which was granted to Bracknell Forest Cambion Partnership, should be extended for a further 12 months from the 1st of October 22. This, of course, is because of the current market situation, so we're giving what we believe to be a fair additional period of time for the partnership to look at possibilities for that site. Moving over the page to Adult Services, Health and Housing, the Berkshire Community Equipment Service that was commissioned through a Section 75 joint agreement across all Berkshire Unitary local authorities and then NHS partners. That's been agreed to continue. We've agreed to continue membership of the joint agreement for a maximum period of 5 years, and the procurement process is being led by West Berkshire Council and is subject to review by Bracknell Forest. Moving on to Bay House and Bar Close, it's been agreed to spend up to £500,000 with Silver Homes from Section 106 Affordable Housing Commuted Fund, and that will support the development of 51 additional social rented homes. Over the page, we got Adult Services, Health and Housing, the National Drug Strategy. It's been agreed to a Berkshire East geography for the Combating Drugs Partnership that will look to deliver against the priorities set out in the National Drug Strategy. Stuart Lyons, the Director of Public Health for Berkshire East, will be the Senior Responsible Officer. And a temporary post will be created to support the establishment of the Berkshire East Combating Drugs Partnership. The next steps will be to undertake a needs assessment and develop a local strategy that delivers against national priorities. And Councillor Birch, who's the appropriate executive member, has been appointed to the Combating Drugs Partnership. Over the page, Corporate Business Change Programme, the Business Change and Transformation Programme has been refocused, responding to any major policy and legislative changes, to address any serious service weaknesses and to support the organisation to move towards long-term financial sustainability. And the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman annual review letter has been received, and that provides us with an overview of the Council's performance in compliant handling covering 2021 to 22. There were 12 detailed investigations conducted, which is higher than the previous year, but below all our SIPFA neighbours. Over the page, integrated enforcement. The Executive were presented with the findings of the Environment and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Panel's review into enforcement services, and the Greening Energy Use Reducing Costs approved £785,000 investment into Invest to Save schemes, including £245,000 of enabling works that will reduce the Council's carbon footprint. I wished I could have announced that earlier this evening. Looking at children, young people and learning, overview and scrutiny review of special educational needs and disabilities report. We've received the findings of the Education, Skills and Growth Overview and Scrutiny Panel's review into SEND. And we move on to, over the page, Financial Hardship Action Plan and Household Support Fund, Phase 3. We've agreed the proposed routes for distributing the Household Support Fund, which is supermarket vouchers to free school meal pupils, offering local food banks additional funding, purchase supermarket vouchers to distribute to low-income families, and enhancing the local welfare scheme provision. It's also been agreed that the new Financial Hardship Action Plan setting out a strategic and sustainable approach to supporting residents experiencing hardship. Over the page, we have the latest on the SEND written statement of action. The written statement of action was accepted as fit for purpose by Ofsted in July 2022, and the first quarterly review meeting with the department took place on the 10th of October. Implementation of the plan is happening at pace and was recognised as such, and since the meeting, a bid to the 2022 Free Special School Capital Fund has been submitted, seeking funding for 2 special schools in our borough. Over the page, continuing with the SEND written statement of action, this was accepted as fit. Oh, hang on, sorry, I beg your pardon. I seem to have 2. I hope it's not come out twice on the electronic copy. Next, we have the domestic abuse strategy for 2022 to 24. The executive has endorsed the domestic abuse strategy, which addresses a priority for the Community Safety Partnership. 4 priorities would inform key areas of work, which are prevention and early intervention, the provision of services, enforcement and management of perpetrators, and working in partnership. And over the page, we have review of contaminated land strategy, which has been approved. The updated strategy was last updated in 2012, and the legislation requires periodic reviews. There have been minor layout and legislative updates proposed, but no significant changes to the Council's overall strategy. So with that, that concludes my executive report, and as I hope you'll notice, it's been a fairly busy time. So thank you, and happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bettison. Does any councillor have a question? Okay, I note Councillor Temperton. Okay, over to you, Councillor Temperton.
Councillor Mayor Temperton, on page 28 of the executive report, it says that all accumulated deficits in the school budget are now charged to an unusable reserve known as dedicated school grant adjustment. And the present deficit of that is 9.34 million. With increased inflation, increasing energy price, bills and increasing staff costs, how is that ever to be balanced? Because I know it's ring-fenced and it's 9.3 million now deficit.
Thank you for that question. Given that I wasn't given any notice of it, I'd like to share the question with my colleague, Councillor Dr. Gareth Barnard.
I have to start by saying I don't know the full numbers, but what I can say is that this is an issue that is going to be considered, amongst others, at the Schools Forum that is coming up next week, when in addition we hope to have some clarity on the additional money that has been put towards schools, which will help that broader issue, because we do recognise, I think the government recognises, that schools are facing a fairly unique situation in terms of increased salary costs, increased energy and support costs. So we'll be working through that, but happy after this meeting with the support of the leader to get a written response to you on that detailed question. I'm sure Paul will be waiting in the wings to, not that Paul, the other Paul, Children, Young People and Learning Paul, to actually provide the report to Paul Clark. There we are.
Thank you.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to
Thank you, Councillor Bettison. Thank you, Councillor Barnard. Any other, does any other councillor have a question in the room? Councillor Bidwell.
Councillor Bidwell, yeah, very comprehensive summary, but I did note that the reserves are quite high. And although you've made, we as a council have made great steps to add funding to those who really need it through this difficult time, is there not an opportunity to take some of those reserves and increase even further the support that we can give to the much needed folk?
Thank you for that question. The reserves at 5% are a little over the minimum prescribed, being 4%, but they're certainly not excessive, and they're about right for a prudent authority. However, of course, as you'll know, we are now in the midst of setting a budget for the coming year. And I can assure you, Councillor Bidwell, that the reserves will be featuring in the budget for the forthcoming year. So we are not just stashing cash. I can assure you of that. I can assure you also, as you've heard from the figures that I gave and the figures that were given earlier by my colleague, that the amount that we are assisting our residents with demonstrates clearly to everyone that we're taking the situation very seriously indeed. And I can assure you we will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bettison. Are there any other questions in the room from the councillors? Okay. Madam Deputy Mayor, are there any questions from those joining remotely?
Nobody has indicated a desire to speak.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bettison. We'll wait for a minute while Councillor Bettison takes seat. Okay. Okay, we now come to the recommendation on page 14 of the agenda report relating to Treasury Management. Councillor Hayden, would you like to move this recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation under 5.2.3 on page 14 of the papers, the note the Treasury Management performance as set out in Annex B.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Is that seconded?
I'd like to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Does any councillor wish to speak? Okay, I don't have any indication in the room. Madam Deputy Mayor, are there any requests to speak from those joining remotely?
There are not.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The recommendation is set out on the screen.
Oh, hang on. Somebody's put their camera on. No.
Okay. So there are no questions. So we move to the recommendation. The recommendation is set out on the screen. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay. That is carried. We now come to the recommendation on page 15 of the agenda report relating to Market Street Site Settled Development Plan. I think we had a declaration of, yeah, okay. I note that Councillor Hayden has now left the meeting. I'd like to remind members that we may need to consider moving to closed session. This will be if members wish to discuss some of the issues within the appendix of the report in detail. This is due to the possible disclosure of exempt information. The exempt appendix is not included in the publicly available copy of the supplementary report. The recommendation is on page 15 of the agenda relating to the Market Street Site Settled Development Plan. Councillor Barnard, would you like to move this recommendation?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation at 5.4.2 on page 15 of the agenda.
Thank you, Councillor Barnard. Is that seconded?
I'd like to second that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Does any councillor wish to speak? Okay. I don't see any questions in the room. Madam Deputy Mayor, are there any requests remotely?
No, there are not.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The recommendation is set out on screen. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? That is carried. The next agenda, can we get Councillor Hayden back in the room, please? Before I... Welcome back, Councillor Hayden. Okay. The next agenda item is the Councillor Code of Conduct. Does any councillor have a question? Okay. I don't see any questions in the room. Madam Deputy Mayor, any questions remotely?
No questions remotely.
Okay. So we don't have any questions on this one. Councillor Allen, would you like to move this recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to move that recommendation at 2.1 regarding the Council Code of Conduct be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Is that seconded?
I'm happy to second it, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Does any councillor wish to speak?
Sorry, yeah, I'll just say that basically the Code of Conduct was introduced under the Localism Act of 2011. And the reason for the review was that the LGA in 2020, at the end of 2020, introduced a model Code of Conduct. And we had a working group which compared our own Code of Conduct against the model. And we actually decided that our own Code of Conduct was more robust. And we would stick to our own model, our own Code of Conduct. The major change here is that we're changing most of it to the first person language and changing all the word members to councillors so it's more readable and understandable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Madam Deputy Mayor, any requests from those remote?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. The recommendations are set out on the screen. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? That has carried. The next agenda item is the special severance payments statutory guidance. Does any councillor have a question? Okay, no questions in the room. Madam Deputy Mayor, any questions remotely?
There are not, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, Councillor Allen, would you like to move this recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation on agenda item 8 regarding special severance payments be approved.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Is that seconded?
I'm happy to second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Does any councillor wish to speak?
Just to briefly say, this is being introduced as a statutory guidance. Basically, the government have actually written another paper, which they published in May, and basically it's statutory guidance for all councils so that they can regularise the way they do special severance payments.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Madam Deputy Mayor, any requests from councillors remotely to speak?
Not at this time, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. The recommendations are set out on the screen. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? This is carried. The next agenda item is the Pay Policy Statement 2022. Does any councillor have a question? Yes, Councillor Porter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not a question as such, it's an observation on page 170, Regulation 74. It's still showing the old Chief Executive's name. Can that be changed because the Chief Executive left 2 months ago? Thank you.
We will make sure that is corrected. Can the officer team please take note? Thank you, Councillor Porter. Any other questions from those in the room? Okay.
I'll probably comment on that actually, that it is a report for 2022-23, so it should potentially have both names in it.
Okay.
Because it's aimed technically, it's supposed to be produced before the beginning of the year or around the beginning of the year. So the old Chief Executive probably is the right name to put in it. Unfortunately, in past years, we have produced it retrospectively, and that's not the way it's supposed to happen. So what we're trying to do is bring it back forward to the beginning of the year. So the next one we do will be done, I believe, in April, May this year.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Can I request the solicitor team to make sure that we do it, whatever the right procedure is on this? Thank you. Okay, thank you, Councillor Allen. Madam Deputy Mayor, any questions from those joining remotely?
There are none at this time, thank you.
Okay. If there are no further questions, Councillor Allen, would you like to move this recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to move that Council review and agree the pay policy statement for 2022-23.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Does any councillor wish to speak?
Just to say, this is a statutory document. We have to do it every year. And this is this year's version. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Madam Deputy Mayor, any requests from those online?
There are not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The recommendations are set out on the screen. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? This is carried. The next agenda item is the council appointments and attendance at meetings report. Does any councillor have a question? Okay, I don't see any questions in the room. Madam Deputy Mayor, any questions remotely?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Councillor Allen, would you like to move this recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to move the recommendation at agenda item 10 regarding appointments and attendance at meetings.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Birch. Does any councillor wish to speak? Okay, no requests in the room. Anyone online, Madam Deputy Mayor?
No one wishes to speak to this item, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The recommendations are set out on the screen. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? This is carried. The next agenda item is the meetings schedule report. Does any councillor have a question? Okay, no questions in the room. Madam Deputy Mayor, any questions remotely?
There are not, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, Councillor Bettison, would you like to move this recommendation?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to move the recommendations as discussed.
Thank you, Councillor Bettison. Is that seconded?
Councillor Birch, I'm pleased to second.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Does any councillor wish to speak? Okay, I don't have any requests in the room. Any requests online?
None
Madam
online
Deputy
at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The recommendations are set out on the screen. Can all those present in the chamber please indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Any against? Any abstentions? This is carried. We have received notice of 4 questions which are set out at item 12 at the beginning of your agenda and on the screen in turn. I'd like to remind both the responder and the questioner that the answers and supplementary questions should arise directly from the question or the reply provided and be succinct. Councillor Templeton, are you content for us to take your question as read?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Templeton. I'll give a moment for everyone to read the question. Okay. Councillor Birch, can you please, or would you like to respond?
Oh, most definitely,
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, and thank you. Because I need to start by just drawing attention to the fact that the question fails to recognise that Heathlands delivers more than just dementia care, and that the CQC inspection was for the dementia part only, and that we have a very successful reablement element to Heathlands. But the specific response, can I again draw everyone's attention to the fact that the council is not delivering the dementia nursing care at Heathlands. However, council officers and our partners in the NHS have been undertaking detailed and intensive work in relation to support the operator. And that operator is Windsor Care, who, as a registered provider, are responsible for developing and delivering the improvement plan that they have agreed with the Care Quality Commission. This plan outlines actions in response to each of the issues identified by the inspection. However, our officers are providing support and advice as needed and monitoring the provider's improvement journey. Delivery of each part of the plan has been overseen by a representative from one of the following teams within the council and its partners: the care home quality team, the medical optimisation in care homes people, the safeguarding people, community mental health, and our own commissioning people. The plan is reviewed by Windsor Care initially and then shared jointly for us to assist. Actions included in the plan have included training, audits of practice and medication procedures, the developing and auditing support plan, recruitment of skilled staff that included a new manager and a new deputy manager, and many other activities. Each action is validated before it is signed off with a joint review meeting taking place on a fortnightly basis. To ensure that people within the facility are safe, we, the council's team, have undertaken a range of safeguarding activities. These include reviews of staffing rotas and risk assessments, welfare visits, targeted medication training, observations and individual safeguarding meetings. Weekly council meetings have been chaired by the AD for commissioning, Tom Wilson, to review progress, analyse risks, and to consider necessary actions. And so that is what has been happening. The CQC members have re-inspected Heathlands in the first week of November. And as you all know, with CQC, we all wait to find out what their findings are. And we, as a council, in support of the operator, stand ready to provide any further information that CQC may need. Windsor Care, as the operator, will be the first to receive the CQC report, which they will then share with us, so I can offer no comment on that inspection until that occurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Councillor Templeton, do you have a supplementary question?
So I assume this is done within the timescale. I think that was the end of December when the timescale was there. So yeah, this inspection is coming up. I appreciate all that's been done, and hopefully the inspection will show that this has been, it's been okay. Can I ask if the monitoring by the officers and all the support that we've been given, the council's officers have been given the time, will continue for a while, or will continue to make sure the changes are sustainable?
Well, it is the practice of the council to monitor and assist all its care home providers. So that will continue as part of our normal and regular and rigorous monitoring of all care home providers and providers of other forms of care in the borough. So the answer there is it will most definitely continue to be closely monitored and closely supported by this council.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Okay, moving on to our second question set out at item 12 at the beginning of your agenda and on the screen. Councillor Neil, are you content for us to take your question as read?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Neil. Councillor Harrison, would you like to respond?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. And Councillor Neil, hi. Thank you very much for your question. It's often the case that as councillors we come across residents who have concerns about issues of crime and so on. It may not always be obvious to those who are reporting crime and antisocial behaviour that those reports are always being acted on, but however all the reports are really important. It's vital that we do make sure and that we do encourage residents to report all crime, because it helps the police and partners develop a clear picture of where that crime and disorder is taking place in the borough. It helps plan the activities and prioritise resources according to the highest level of threat, harm and risk. If the reports are not made, police and other agencies will be unaware of the issues, so any information regarding this is really useful, and as much detail as possible is encouraged. And I think your question allows me to share some real success stories in our borough. For example, Councillor Mrs. Birch has reported some antisocial behaviour and issues of car meets and car racing and speeding around in the area she represents, and we got some real action from the police on that because of the persistence of the local councillor there. And also Councillor Tina Mackenzie Boyle has been very, very strong in her advocacy for Crowthorne in reporting problems with antisocial behaviour, and in conjunction with Crowthorne Parish Council, bringing that to the attention of myself, community safety team and of the police. And I'm pleased to say that as a result of that particular attention and hard work by the local councillor, we've actually attracted a grant from the Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner to put in some youth work to divert young people in Crowthorne away from that sort of activity and to things that are far more constructive. So we have a great opportunity as councillors to be leaders in our areas, and we need to do that. We need to take up that opportunity, and we need to help police gather that intelligence of where this crime and antisocial behaviour is. So where you're speaking to residents, do encourage them to report crime, report antisocial behaviour, even if it seems like nothing's happening at that particular point in time, because there can be action on it, and it can give them the intelligence, and it will encourage the police to devote resources to those particular areas, as much detail as possible. I've also had the opportunity, because I sometimes share that frustration that we don't always get immediate police on the spot when we report antisocial behaviour and things. Sometimes there is a bit of a difficulty in terms of resourcing. Sometimes somebody isn't available to do that. So in meetings with the Police and Crime Commissioner, I've actually been pressing this point. Although we have record numbers of police officers in the Thames Valley now, as a result of the recruitment that they put in place, the particular problem we have is that in some cases, some of those extra police officers have been recruited, and they've come, and there's no problem with this particularly. They've been police and crime. They've been police. What's the word now? I'm struggling for that. PCS. That's right. Thank you, Mary. They've been PCSOs. PCSOs have taken the opportunity to step up, to go into training to become police officers. I'd support that, but what it does do is leave a bit of a hole in our neighbourhood team. So I've been pressing our Police and Crime Commissioner to ask, what can we do to bring new PCSOs on board? And recruitment difficulties may be a bit of an issue there. But once that's worked through, and the fact that some of the police officers, especially new police officers, are putting a lot of extra classroom time in on training to get skilled up in police work. So that takes away a bit from the front line, but these things are working their way through the system, increasing police numbers, and I've got some great confidence that we actually will have more police on the beat in our local communities as this policy goes through and succeeds. So thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. Councillor Neil, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I agree. So the work of councillors is very important in communities. And so, for example, Great Hollands, we have no PC currently, no PCSO. So I recognise the recruitment challenges that you're talking about. But when we don't have that presence for residents, you know, we can talk about sort of one-off success stories, which is brilliant. And how do we, I guess, reassure residents amongst all these good stories what is happening and how are we supporting them?
Thank you. Moving on to our third question, as set out at item 12 at the beginning of your agenda and on the screen here. Councillor Bidwell, are you content for us to take your question as read?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Barnard, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Bidwell, for your question. So, Bracken Walk Youth Centre became operational in April 2021, having been built, shall we say, through a somewhat challenging time for construction. Social distancing is not very easy on a building site, but notwithstanding the, the issues there, it was built and has been completed to a very high standard, and it's something I'm immensely proud of for our young people. It's a project we've been working on for 7 to 8 years, and the first time I saw it, it was what was the remains of the former comedy club. Then the next time I saw it, it was a sort of a hollowed out hulk under on the ground floor of the car park. And the third time, it is quite simply a really stunning, beautiful building, designed largely by young people for our young people. In terms of its operation, the centre receives referrals from a wide range of sources and is actively engaged with schools, multi-agency partners and stakeholders across the borough. We are working very closely with young people and their carers, and we like to believe that Bracken Walk Youth Centre is actually a safe space for young people. It's designed to be used by young people, and we're therefore very sensitive about the range of uses we have in it. So the centre currently provides structured group activities and bespoke individual sessions for young people, offering support and guidance in response to some group need or actually personalised plans based on assessments completed by the youth workers with individual young people's needs firmly taken into account. The centre also provides open access for young people over the school holiday age, which is a critical, I think, and essential time when there's less structured activity through schools, colleges and elsewhere in the community. Based on the feedback from young people and partners, a range of groups have been created and there's a greater presence from partners providing a service from the centre. That's in no small measure because of the way the centre was designed and equipped. So, for example, there is a very nice room in there which is equipped to actually accommodate a nurse for some of the work I'll be talking about shortly. The following groups are currently running from the centre. And this is a fantastic one first. We're working with the Prince's Trust. There's an employment project there, which is there every day from around about 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. High level of engagement there. And it accommodates 12 people daily at the moment. And these are young people who will not be normally accessing, those opportunities. So I think that's really good. There is a sexual health drop-in on 1 day a week. Since January of this year, there have been 52 formal clinics and some other informal work, and over 150 individual young people have attended the clinic to date. So again, these are some young people which wouldn't necessarily access such services through their schools, but feel that Bracken Walk offers a safe and confidential place to access the services they need to. And the response, when I was speaking to the nurse and Darren Berry, who were hosting me on a visit there to get an update, was saying that it was really, really meeting a need in a way that we've not been able to do in Bracknell Forest before. And again, that's linked to the safe, high-quality environment and the facilities provided there specifically for that service. There's also Young Carers Drop-In, which is now building up again. This was a group of young people who were particularly concerned about during the pandemic and immediately afterwards, because, of course, they are the statutory group of young people that we support, but they're very, very important in terms of the work we do. So currently, each session is intended by maybe 10 to 15 young people, different each week. But the really nice thing is that 6 young carers at that group have actually completed a first aid course, and first aid certificate have been attained while there, which is really critical in supporting their role at home. So we're further expanding that project as well. And again, that's because the facilities there are very conducive to that. Elevate, so that's a team based at Bracken Walk to support young people who are not in employment, education and learning. And the great thing there is about 12 to 15 young people a week attending that as well. There's an LGBTQ plus drop-in which has been established there. And I think there the sessions are aimed at young people who require support and space to explore and discover themselves in a safe environment. As part of the planning assessment for young people to safely access the group, there is work completed with the youth worker prior to attending the group, and we now have in excess of 25 young people who regularly attend the group there. And again, there's some youngsters in that who are, shall we say, finding their way forward at that point, and it's a really safe space for them to meet there as well. There's a college drop-in, and this is really a good one here, because these are young people who've recently started college, and they can seek support there, and again in a safe environment outside the college environment, to gain that support and mentoring from their peers, and to meet staff to support them with their transition to college, and an opportunity to discuss issues with college, home and relationships. Again, about 12 to 15 young people a week accessing that. Now, those are the sort of main groups at the moment, and there's more work on what we would call sort of targeted universal provision that we're developing up as part of a wider strategy. There's a whole range of ad hoc usage as well. So the youth work one-to-one sessions, and they provide bespoke individual sessions for young people based on specific needs, using the one-to-one rooms in there, regularly to meet young people open to the service. For some, this works better than engaging them in school. So we've got 3 big secondary schools in the area, and up to now, generally the youth workers would go into schools, but actually, the sort of things that they want to talk about are best not accessed from the school premises. So actually, the youth workers will go and collect them from the school, bring them to Bracken Walk for the session and the support they get there, and then take them back. And what's really interesting is this is proving an absolute win, because many of the young people who were struggling with the contact before in the school environment are really starting to blossom, and they're really reaching their potential, and they're really feeling more confident as a consequence of this work going on there. There are more than 35 youngsters currently accessing that on a regular basis. But the really good thing is that some young people causing a few issues in the town centre, and you can't just wait, as Darren would say, for young people to come to the youth centre. You have to go and find them. Well, they found them, they engaged with them, and now the great thing is some of them come and knock on the door when they want that additional support, and that's one of the benefits of having that town centre location. So thinking about other sessions, the Youth Justice team and Make Safe team are both accessing and making regular use of the centre, and they're independently meeting young people and providing ongoing support around criminal behaviour and exploitation, which again is a very significant part of the bespoke support we want to give to children and young people. SILSIP, Say It Loud, Say It Proud, the Leaving Care team and the Children Care Council are regularly accessing the building, providing regular evening sessions and some holiday work. And for those on the corporate parenting panel, you saw some of the activities they did in the summer, and they engage and they share in sessions there. And I think that's really, really important. And the plan is to consolidate this programme and actually provide a broader range of activities. And one example that's emerging now is we're doing some good work as a council with our youth workers with the RISE, that's the RISE at Garth Hill, which is an SEND resource there, to actually see how we can develop provision within Bracken Walk for special educational needs and disability young people, to see how we can work with the young people there, again maintaining that philosophy of a young person focused facility. And there's already been some success working with some youngsters from the Rise, who were taken out of the school environment, taken to Bracken Walk, where they were able to explore some of those almost social, emotional and health-based issues, which are quite difficult to teach in a specialist resort and, you know, provide nurture and encourage. So I'm really excited by the way it's going. It's something I really had a huge amount of drive, and I think my executive colleagues and other council colleagues remember I talked about it for quite a long time, and I'm really grateful to the council for, both in capital terms and also revenue terms, investing in a facility and investing in youth work at a time when many other councils are pulling back from it. We recognise if you want to provide really strong child and young person focused service and support, you have to provide them with a high quality facility, and they are looking after it so well to do that. And I'm really excited about the work we're doing. Now, COVID has changed a lot in our world, particularly when it comes to working with children and young people. And I think we've decided that now is time to take stock, build on the work that's been going on in Bracken Walk, and really now expanding and developing it. So in the new year, hope to bring to councillors two things. First of all, an invitation for you all to visit Bracken Walk, which I think if we can sort of slot it in between the myriad of activities going on there will be great. And secondly, an initial thought on how we take the strategy forward. And finally, and this is the really exciting bit, the Lexicon have decided that Bracken Walk now officially exists. So they're just about to reissue a map, and on that map, Bracken Walk Youth Centre will feature, which is kind of good, as it was one of the original ideas to make sure it was somewhere in the town centre that young people could go to. So hopefully, Councillor Bidwell, that answers your question. You say at the start, presumably open to all. Unfortunately, it's not open to all, but it's open to all our young people. And hopefully we can develop a further range of activities there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnard. Councillor Bidwell, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Councillor Barnard, for that detailed summary, if there is such a thing, of all the services that centre provides. It looks very good. But the specific question was about the youth centre. And dropping by there tonight, it wasn't being used. There's probably a good reason for that. Youth centres do tend to open in the evening for the young, so I was a bit disappointed with that. The signage for the youth centre is an A3 piece of paper stuck up with pins. So really my question, I don't think it's been answered. That was how many people or how many younger people are using the youth centre, when is it open, and that's what the uptake question was supposed to be about. And you will also note, because you received the same email as I did from the chair of the Bracknell Carer Forum, that's Sharon Ashmore-Mobbs, who has tried to engage with the centre and has been told that they're far too busy to talk to her. So,
Councillor Bidwell, can I just say that what you stated just now was that your question was how many people are, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That is not what is on the question.
Well, I think, and what has been the uptake would be how many people would attend the youth centre.
I thought that answer was provided, whether specific numbers were given. But
150 people have used the centre since April 2021, but I haven't had an answer as to how many people use the youth centre, not the centre.
Okay, so are you wanting to change your question?
No, it says there quite clearly, the youth centre in Bracken Walk is now open for all. That should be for the youth. I get that one. What is being provided there? You answered that question. And what has been the uptake? So how many people, how many young people attend the youth centre?
I thought I heard the answer, but Councillor Barnard, do you want to state that again?
I think, can I just say, colleagues, I think that's a fairly churlish supplementary question, because I went through in detail the regular weekly attendees at the activities, the total number of individual youngsters that access the sexual health drop-in services.
Youth
Everything
centre, not the sexual health centre and the health centre for the youth. It's the Bracknell.
Well, Councillor Bidwell, can I stop you there? You've had your supplementary. These are all facilities located within the Bracken Walk Youth Hub. They were there because that's where young people wanted to access them. They're an integral part of a targeted youth offering in Bracknell Town Centre. And I reckon by my maths that probably, well, if you've got 151 accessing the sexual health service, 15 for different activities, you're probably seeing round about 150 youngsters accessing that hub every week, plus those on the Prince's Trust work, plus others. It is all integral to providing support for young people. We're not talking here about a universal access youth hub at this point in time. We're talking about a carefully designed, well fitted out, high quality facility for young people to access services, and it is proving immensely successful in supporting and developing and supporting the mental health, emotional well-being and physical needs of our young people. That is what a youth hub does. That is what we based it on, and what we're now talking about is further expanding it. Now, in relation to the specific email that we both received from the Parent Carers Forum, I responded to Sharon very, very soon
Councillor
after I
Barnard,
received the email.
can I request for us to stay on the question?
Yeah,
And
no,
just-
this is an important thing. I actually responded to Sharon saying that unfortunately the Bracken Walk Youth Hub was not a facility for groups such as that we would support them in finding a location in the town centre, and Sharon emailed back saying, OK, that was fine. So immediately on receipt of that email, I engaged with her, and we are actually looking at how best we can support the Parent and Carers Forum. So let's work through that one. But fundamentally, it's being well used, it's being well accessed, and hopefully when we can get a visit there in the new year, and you can actually see for yourself that you'll be able to understand what an integrated youth hub is and why it's so important for the young people there. And the really big thing for me is that a number of young people that previously would have actually been out and about in Bracknell Town Centre, you know, the youth workers engaged, found them, and they are now actively engaging in that centre. Now, that might be numerically a small number, and it might be that in the evenings there isn't this one-to-one work going in the evenings or groups going on every evening, and I'm not prepared to say because of some of those groups which evening they are. It's a Thursday evening at the moment, so that's actually late afternoon, early evening for one of the features there, which is why it might be closed now. But the bottom line is it's a superb integrated youth facility, and we're investing in this and supporting this and believing in our young people at a time when many other councils are pulling out of that. But hopefully in the new year you'll be able to see for yourself how it all works together. And we have to move away from thinking about a traditional youth centre to looking at a model of integrated delivery. It's what the young people wanted, it's what we've delivered, it's what they helped design. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Barnard. Okay, moving on to our fourth question, set out at item 12 at the beginning of your agenda and on the screen. Councillor Brown, are you content for us to take your question as read?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I am.
Thank you. I'll give a moment for everyone to read that. Councillor Hayden, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Brown. I consulted with the officers on this meeting's findings, and the description, serious repairs to the fabric of the building, is a little bit disingenuous. I understand it was explained to you at the time that there were, admittedly there were some items to be rectified. However, there aren't any serious repairs, and some of the items discussed aren't the responsibility of the council. They're either for the tenants or the landlords. I.e., it's not Bracknell Forest Council's responsibility. It's actually reflecting on the youth hub. I'm sure that most councils are aware that all property is now being moved into a corporate landlord model, where property professionals are now responsible for all matters such as these. And it's interesting that one of the early properties that was brought forward into the corporate model was actually the youth hub, which was grabbed with delight by Gareth. But in general, all council property is subject to a 5-year condition survey, which establishes the quality of the estate, the priorities that work has to be done, and then inputs into the annual planned maintenance and routine maintenance or reactive maintenance schedules and budgets. And sometimes it spills into the capital budgets as well. It's quite complex. This, as you'd expect, is monitored on a regular basis. And you can imagine that emergencies appear and other repairs are frequently needed almost on an ad hoc basis. An example, actually, in Priestwood is that all the gutterings were replaced recently because they were, they deteriorated so much. I have to add as well, in terms of our overall situation on property, that we put a huge focus on delivering the lexicon, and we all know how successful that is and how proud we are. And now attention is being focused back onto the neighbourhood centres, but we couldn't do both simultaneously because we didn't have the resources or the budgets to do it. I do think, talking about serious repairs required is somewhat overstated, and I'm surprised that, having gone with the officers, that it's deemed necessary to raise the issue again. I thought it had been answered. The second part about the limited budget of 85,000 available for tidying up. Tidying is quite an appropriate word for this. It's the small or very small works to keep community neighbourhoods up to scratch. It's only part of the overall budget. The total planned and reactive maintenance budgets are around £2.25 million per annum. That's across the council's estate, excluding schools. I hope the claim of 85,000 is not an attempt to ridicule what is actually a major responsibility, and the context of the £85,000 is understood. A good example, and this sort of last week in another community neighbourhood in Wild Riding Square, where Councillor Hamilton is responsible for flower beds to be replanted, graffiti removed, and other works. And last week she called me in to witness the benches being repainted, and also the ironwork and concrete surfaces refreshed. Now, this all has to be anticipated or budgeted for, and hopefully you can see how a smaller allocation of £85,000 is for things like painting benches and stuff like that, which is only a small part of the overall budget in terms of maintaining the council's estate, which when all said and done is probably close on £1 billion in value. It's all part of the maintenance investment which makes Bracknell Forest such a great place. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Councillor Brown. Mrs. Brown, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I think I better. The repairs were not superficial. They are serious. The repairs were not done...
Can I request you to ask the supplementary question?
Yeah. The repairs were not done properly every 5 years, unless he thinks that damp-proof courses and walls that are sodden and black are not very serious.
Sorry, Councillor Brown. Can I please request?
Serious? I have just put the question, Mr. Mayor.
Can you please help me understand what the question is?
I have... Well, if you just wait for me to speak,
Sure.
then you will hear. Thank you. I asked whether he thought that damp-proof courses that are broken and walls that are sodden and black are not very serious.
Councillor Hayden, would you like to respond?
Of course they are. That's part of the cycle of the condition survey, which was done 2 years ago. I understand that some of those things weren't actually the responsibility of the council, but the officers actually explained that to you at the time.
Mr. Mayor, I think I'd better write directly to Councillor Hayden because he hasn't got the full picture somehow or other.
Right.
Okay, I think we had the supplementary question. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending the meeting. I now declare the meeting closed. Can you please let me know once the live stream is stopped?